Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Gilmore Sisters, a rant podcast. This podcast is presented by the Cereal Box Network and hosted by Phoenix Sisters Cosplay. Hashtag always be promoting. Yeah, go check out our cosplay stuff on Facebook or Instagram, Phoenix Sisters Cosplay. Anyway, this week we are going to be talking about the episode we've been building to from the beginning. Mythical Stars Hollow. What is up with the people in this show? Are they fairies? Are they vampires? What are they? We're gonna talk about it. We've been building to it for a while, so we'll get there
Yes.
right after this.
La 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 la. Gilmore Sisters.
Gilmore Sisters is a Phoenix Sisters cosplay production and is hosted by the Cereal Box Network. Pokeballs by Crayle is your one-stop shop for handmade magical creations that celebrate all the Pokemon universe has to offer. Available on CrayleVanest.com, that's CrayleVanest.com, and possibly coming to a con near you. One nightmare destroyed Aidan O'Donnell. Aidan Gray, aka Scorcher, was born out of those ashes. The Forces of Nature trilogy is about the destructive powers of having superpowers that you don't understand and can't control. It's about redemption, about finding love and finding yourself. You can find the first two books, Scorcher and Thin Ice, online wherever books are sold. You can also pre-order the upcoming audiobook for Scorcher at www.kellyguentner.com. That's www.KELLYGUENTNER.
And we're back. How are you doing this week, Kelly?
Good. I am so excited. So I should preface this by saying we did not set out to posit this cracktastic theory, and yet our brains just came up with it as we're ranting about some of the strangeness about the residents of Stars Hollow.
Yeah, I don't
And
even remember
beyond.
which issue had us first being like, okay, maybe there's vampires or something. We were like, where did Luke get all this money? And he is so grumpy and bad at people and stuff. When maybe he's just like a vampire or something. He's just living off of compound interest.
Just so many things about the show don't quite make sense. And a little behind the scenes tidbit here. So our network head has never been a fan of Gilmore Girls, ever. But he is on board with my fairy theory, and he's a little mad at us because he's like, how dare you get me talking and theorizing about a show I didn't even like. He's really excited about my fairy theory because what were the two things he said? I have to check the chat, but the first thing was that Stars Hollow sounds like a fairy hollow, which I agree.
Oh gosh, it was something Glen, like a specific place. And
Um,
also he brought up the obvious supernatural connection with Jared Padalecki. As someone who doesn't even like the show Gilmore Girls, was like, and wasn't one of the main guys one of the hunters in Supernatural? And we were like, yeah, it was Dean.
yep, Dean went to Supernatural and played Sam, brother to Dean, which is so strange. And let me look back through. So I'm just gonna say this also. That Founder's Punch has some interesting properties that can also be found in Fey wine. It's super strong. It lowers inhibitions, and everyone's like, "What's in this? What happened to me?" Granted, alcohol does that too, but I feel like the Founder's Punch was magical.
Yeah. Oh no, he just said like a fairy Glen. He also said it brings up Rory's complete lack of sense of responsibility. He said it's because fairies tend to be so present-minded only that they don't really consider long-term ramifications of their actions. They're just, enter into a deal here. They're just flitting around, not really thinking about long-term stuff. So
And I feel like both Rory and Lorelai do not consider the long-term ramifications of any of their actions. Like hardly ever. How often do they do things? Like Lorelai and Max, Lorelai kissing Max in the middle of Rory's school. She didn't think about ramifications of that. Lorelai getting pregnant in high school, granted she was a teenager, but like, did you think about any long-term ramifications there? No. Rory sleeping with a married guy. She didn't think about any ramifications. Rory stealing a boat. I mean, we could go on and on and on, but this show is built on impulsive people doing impulsive things and just living in the moment.
Luke showing
I
up to
bet it's
Lorelai, I just spent $100,000 or however much it was, and it's all your fault. And Lorelai's like, wait, what? Because he bought the building that the diner and the storefront next to him are in, right?
Who does that?
Because that
Also, who has the money to do that? Beings that have been around forever.
Exactly, through the magic of compound interest, because Luke brings up over and over and over again that he doesn't make very much at the diner. Like, when Jess buys a car, Lorelai's like, where'd he get the money? Or no, Luke is asking Lorelai, where'd you get the money? And Lorelai's like, well, he works at the diner. And Luke was like, Lorelai, I can't buy that car with the money I make at the diner. And it's like, which I'm sure was an exaggeration, but even still, like. And then Suki has that throwaway line when they're thinking about investors for the inn. In the Incredible Sinking Lorelai's episode, where she's like, and he's a hermit, so he's got money. Like, hermitiness fits for either vampires or fairies. It really does. Like,
yes, it does. Babette getting mad about the guy kicking the gnome, like maybe that was her cousin. I think we
Pierpont the
already talked
gnome.
about that.
I don't remember if we did or not, but yeah, no, she was all like, gnome kicking tells you a lot about a man's character.
That it does.
And even
That it
Luke,
does.
like, completely takes in stride the fact that each of Babette's individual gnomes has a name and a personality. Because whenever he yells at Jess about all the things Jess has done wrong lately, he's like, you will return Pierpont to his yard. And doesn't even explain to Jess, who probably doesn't know who Pierpont is, like, I mean the garden gnome you stole. He's just like, you will return Pierpont to his yard.
Yeah, and I mentioned this last episode, but fairies are supernaturally beautiful. And hello, like, look at the cast.
Right? Some of them look good
Especially,
enough to eat.
right? Especially Lorelai is so beautiful that men just lose all common sense around her. Rory too.
Ooh, the magneticism that Lorelai and Rory have,
Mhm.
where Rory's like, oh, Paco's Tacos was open this early, and Lorelai's like, well, for me, and she's like, the thrall that you hold over fast food owners is
Right?
unreal, or however she says it, like the fact that they're always able to get people to bend the rules just a little bit for them, but the rules that they have accepted as hard and fast, especially Rory, they're like, no, you don't do that. That's against our rules.
Yep.
But those
And
people structure.
Thrall. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying those people structure over there. What's structure?
And Thrall is both a vampire and a fairy thing.
Mm-hmm.
And adherence to rules is definitely more of a fairy thing. Like fairies have very strict rules and they're very strange and inhuman. Also, fairies have very specific rules about hospitality. So that definitely fits with Emily and Richard because their rules behind their hospitality are very strict, and the ways they act out when people violate their rules of hospitality are interesting and crazy
They
to
really
the human
are.
eye. And let's be real, like most of the residents of Stars Hollow also have very specific rules of hospitality.
I mean, the whole
That
town, the local inn burns down, and the whole town is like, people can sleep on our cots. We've got cots. Oh, we've got cots. And it's like, why? Why do you all have cots? So many of you.
so weird. And the town also, if you refuse their hospitality or if you violate their rules of hospitality, they behave in very strange ways. Or if you are like Dean Forrester and you go after Dean Forrester was definitely a human. We're
Oh
gonna go
yeah.
with that.
Well, that
And you
goes
go
into
after
you finish
oh,
your point, but this goes back into one of our network heads' thoughts.
but if you go after one of their favorite princesses, basically, as a human, they are going to be offended and they are going to act out in very strange and magical ways.
They will. But yeah, no. So Dean is a human, and Johnny's theory, our network head, is that since they both aired on the CW, obviously Supernatural and Gilmore Girls are in the same universe. And they even had that little morsel where like Sam Winchester is like, we have to go when they're getting a little like behind the scenes Hollywood tour in the Hollywood Babylon episode. And I think it's season 2. Um,
Yeah, I think so.
and they're like, and on the coming up on the right, we'll see one of the sets for Gilmore Girls and Jared Padalecki's character, Sam or Dean, depending on which way you're thinking of him right now. I was like, I have to get out of here. We have to go.
That was so such a great little Easter egg. And like this is actually not the first time I've seen or I've heard a fan theory like that. Like people, supernatural fans mostly, have posited a theory that Sam was undercover in Stars Hollow for whatever reason, and he specifically chose his brother's name to go undercover because Sam in Supernatural had a long period of time where he went quote unquote away to school.
Mm-hmm. He was also running away for at least shorter periods of time from his dad and brother all the time. Sometimes even before he knew his dad was a monster hunter. So,
Mhm.
you know.
So maybe he decided to take on a case by himself and investigate this fairy hollow or vampire hollow.
Wouldn't be the first time he fell in love with a super. Well, it would in the timeline be the first time, but Sam has fallen in love with supernatural creatures before.
Yep.
So that's a
The
thing.
Supernatural established that his prom date was a demon and he didn't even know it until like season 5. He found out retroactively that his prom date had been a demon.
Yeah.
So that would contradict things because like it's his prom date. But you know what? Whatever, we'll hand wave it.
Rory wasn't his prom date. They weren't dating anymore for their junior and senior years. They went to a different dance. Like,
Oh, yeah, that's true. That was not prom.
it's like a winter formal type thing.
Okay, so it could work. It could work. There's room to play there.
Although
So yeah,
that would imply that Lindsay Lister was a demon, and we do not stan Lindsay hate in
no.
this house. You do not besmirch the name of Lindsay trying her best Lister / Forrester. So
She could have been temporarily possessed by a demon.
true. Very true.
But they actually had the actress who was his prom date, and it wasn't Lindsay. That would have been a fun Easter egg, though.
It would have been. It would have been really fun. Yeah. Also,
So.
we've mentioned in previous episodes that the timeline just makes no sense whatsoever, especially for Luke and Lorelai knowing each other. It's like supposedly they've only known each other for 5 years, but she never learned how to cook and take care of herself. In between Rory being, let's see, Rory's like 15 or 16 at the beginning of the show. 5 years, she would have been like 10. So for the second through 9th year of Rory's life, where did they eat?
Right.
And then there's other times where they're like, we watched him pine after Lorelai for 9 long years. And it's like, where are you getting 9 from? Like,
not to mention Luke's ex-girlfriends. Like, when did he have time to date and knock up Anna Nardini in between being in love with Rachel for years and years and years? The timelines just don't jive unless he is an immortal.
But also have had such long dry periods in between. Like, right? Everybody mentions what a loner he is. His sister Liz mentions it. Like, she's like, well, you're hardly Warren Beatty, which,
But then suddenly he's had 2 long-term, very long-term, serious relationships, which that's not that many, but there's not that many years to account for in his adulthood with how long-term these relationships seemed like they were. I don't know.
But if you're an immortal or at least very long-lived fae creature or vampire or something, the passing of time probably just feels weird and annoying to keep track of anyway. And you probably just throw out whatever number feels closest to right.
Yep.
We also, Kelly, you brought up once that Lorelai doesn't actually smell the snow. She's just in denial of the fact that she has foresight.
Yes.
And that's why she knows better than Kimmy and Krantz on the weather station when it's gonna snow.
I mean, or she could actually be smelling the snow and just have enhanced senses.
Yeah.
That's probably.
Well, I mean, and we know she has a really good nose because she can smell, like, whenever Luke tries to switch out, like, her chips for baked chips, or in her dream when he switches her coffee with decaf, and she's like, the nose, you can't fool it. So, like, whether she has foresight or not, she has super smell, which I can identify with, and Kelly can identify with. We both also have the super smell.
Worst superpower ever.
It is a curse. Cool. I would be one of the X-Men being like, sure, cure me. I didn't get one of the cool powers.
Right. Yeah, I'm telling you, something is up in the hollow and beyond.
Yeah. And we mentioned in the Secrets and Lies episode a lot of scenarios where it just doesn't make sense to keep something a secret or to lie about something. But if you're used to lying all the time anyway, or evading questions or hiding things because you're trying to hide from humans all the time, that would make sense.
Or if you're just immortal and bored, you might keep secrets just to keep things more interesting and bring a little extra drama to you.
Right. We also mentioned in Sleep is for the Undercaffeinated that nobody ever seems to sleep except to be woken up for the plot. And how fae is that to be like, something's probably going to happen tonight. You know what I should do? I should just be asleep.
Yep.
To be difficult.
That is very, very fae. Like, they do not have normal sleep schedules or diets that humans could survive on. And yes, like you said, very fae to be like, oh, I'm just going to go to sleep before this important thing that's going to happen so I can mess it up.
Yeah. So, can you think of any other Anything else we haven't covered?
I think that's it for now. I feel like we're gonna have to revisit this topic again after like another 10 or so episodes. I feel like this topic is gonna keep coming up because we are crazy. Let's be real.
Yeah,
And
it's
we're just gonna
true.
keep coming back to this crack theory, but I'm really excited that we discussed it because
Yeah, it was time. We were gonna stop being able to keep track of all the different things that in our recording of the show we've been like, it's that vampire crap again. It's the fairy stuff. So
yep.
make sure you all reach out to us and tell us if you think vampires or fairies fits better. I thought vampires at the beginning, but Kelly has brought me around to the whole fae folk thing. And honestly, depending on how you define fae, like, you know, in the Lost Girl world, vampires are fae anyway. So how would
Yes.
you classify the denizens of Stars Hollow?
Yes, we want to hear from you, even if it's just to tell us that have jumped the shark.
Yeah, nope.
It, I feel like jumping the shark is something that's going to happen with anything we do, anyways. So you know what? We're not sorry.
We're not. If we ruined the show for you, you sit down to rewatch your comfort show and you're just like, oh, why am I thinking about vampires, those darn Phoenix sisters? That would make me so proud of us.
Yeah, me too. Sorry, not sorry.
Baby, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I don't know if we're allowed to sing that on air or not. Whoops.
We think we can sing it, we just can't play it.
Right. Well, in any case, you can support this show and any other show on the Cereal Box Network by going to buymeacoffee.com/cerealboxpod. Buymeacoffee.com/cerealboxpod is where you need to go to be like, hey, we love those Phoenix sisters and their crazy Gilmore Girl theories so much that we're going to prove it with our wallets. Also, you know, we try so hard, the whole network, not just this show, to be a non-toxic, friendly, no gatekeeping environment who just really gives people a voice for whatever they're passionate about in their fandom. So again, that's buymeacoffee.com/cerealboxpod. Kelly, do you have any final thoughts?
So you can find us on linktree.com/Phoenix Sis Cosplay. That has all our stuff in case you want to find us, which you probably do.
Probably. We're pretty interesting people, if I say so myself.
Which you have to because it's either you or me saying it.
Right. Somebody's.
Otherwise, thank you all for listening and be wary of that founder's punch. It is
Yeah,
dangerous.
it is. It'll have you walking down the street with no shoes, knocking over the pretzel cart and whatever else Paris did, making fart noises at townspeople. Social rules, I've forgotten those. Okay, for real, we are logging out for the week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.